What's up, guys? I hope you're all doing well, and thank you so much for popping into my review for Superman 2, the theatrical cut. In just a week, I'll be seeing Superman, directed by James Gunn, and I'm very excited to do so. But I'm finally catching up with the original films. I just reviewed the original Superman on the channel a few days ago, and now it's time for Superman 2, and I knew I wasn't going to have time to watch both versions, but I wanted to watch one, so it's the theatrical cut. And I do plan on eventually watching the Richard Donner version. Now, this film is directed by Richard Lester, who got directing credit for the film, but it turns out that Richard Donner had already shot most of the film before being fired by the producers. This is the theatrical cut. This is what came out in theaters, and this kind of blew my socks off. You know, you hear that a lot of people say that Superman 2 are the gold standard for superhero films. The first one, I think it's a good movie. I think it's actually probably a great movie, but there's some things about it that I don't like the third act. This film clears all the issues that I had with that first movie. And does it still have 1980s cheesiness? Yeah. Does it still have some questionable visual effects? Sure. Not all of them hold up. No. But what this movie does have, Christopher Reeve as Superman, is just so good. And this movie probably cements him as my favorite comic book hero performance of all time. Look, I love Christian Bale as Batman. I even love Ben Affleck as Batman. Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. These are my favorite. Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. You know, now you have, for me, Christopher Reeve as Superman. You know, there's this scene with the Rushmore where the criminals from Krypton are changing the faces on Mount Rushmore. And I think if you have a Mount Rushmore for actors who played comic book characters, Christopher Reeve, Robert Downey Jr., Tobey Maguire, and who would the fourth one be? Those would be the three for me. Christian Bale, maybe? Yeah, he's so good in this movie. Just like he was in the first one. He's so good in this. All the performances. I mean, everybody really shines in this movie. Margot Kidder is fantastic as Lois Lane. You really care about her in this film, even more so you did in the last one. Gene Hackman is back, and he is just devious and diabolical in the film, as he kind of is completely irrelevant, but he finds ways to poke his nose into where it doesn't belong. And I think that Lex Luthor is just a sleazeball, and he's just a scumbag, but that's why you love him. And the performance is great. You have a great screenplay. This film, he's forced to choose between love and being Superman. When he says 5 minutes earlier that he likes being Clark Kent as well, when he sees his artificial intelligence mother coming in and giving him messages saying, hey, if you want to be with a human, you got to be a human, which I think is kind of a silly rule. I mean, it doesn't really change the fact that the whole first film, he was pretty successful with being Superman and Clark Kent. So, yeah, I thought it was kind of silly that she's giving him an ultimatum. And he goes into the chamber and he takes the power away, which reminds me of Spider-Man 2 so much, which is one of my favorite films of all time. I think that the way that he loses his power in this, he doesn't really lose his power, he gives it up. Or in Spider-Man 2, he loses his power. He doesn't really have a choice. He loses it. He chooses to give his power up because he loves Lois Lane so much. And you do believe it. You do believe their romance because the chemistry is just out of this world. Which leads to a great scene in the diner where this jerk has taken his seat, and he comes up because he's still a good guy, and he says, I want to take you outside and teach you some manners. Sure, he gets annihilated, basically, to where he's on the ground unconscious for a little bit, and he's like, Lois, as he's getting up. I think that you feel for him in that moment, and you're like, wow, he's stripped of his powers, but he's still a good man, and he wants to fight for what's right. So many great moments, character moments in this film. I love at the end of it when he comes back and gives the guy what he deserved. Superman 2, along with Spider-Man 2, are the gold standard for superhero films. And let's not forget about Chancellor Valorum himself. Terrence Stamp, who plays General Zod in this film. I didn't know what to think about him in the first movie because you see him for 5 minutes. Here, he is totally fleshed out, and I was like, whoa, this guy is a menace. And I think that the fight sequence outside the Daily Planet before the end of the film and the climax in the Fortress of Solitude, I think that that sequence went on for a little too long when they're all blowing the wind and you just see people flying and there's literally a guy on roller skates that's going backwards down the street. It was a little ridiculous and overdrawn, but other than a few tiny little criticisms like that, and like I said, 1980s criticism, this movie is fantastic. I can't wait to get the box set and own these films. I'm an idiot for not have watched them until now, but boy, am I glad that I did. Superman 2 is a 4.5 out of 5-star film for me. Comment down below, what's your thoughts on Superman 2? Do you plan on seeing the new film from James Gunn? And guys, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for my reviews for the future Superman films, including Superman, which comes out in just a week. I'm very excited to do so. You guys could also follow me on Twitter and or X at RyanKing72 and Instagram at KingArises131. That's better for me. Thank you so much for watching my review for Superman 2, the Richard Lester version, the theatrical cut. And until next time, over and out.